Welcome to the Tansson Talks show. I'm Brandon, the host of this show, and I always love doing this. I'm very excited to get into today's episode, and I'm excited to go ahead and welcome my guest. I'll actually let him introduce himself to go ahead and get started.
So hey, I'm Carl, and as you can probably tell from the spelling of my name, I'm not Irish, because the spelling of Carl in Irish is a lot different. Uh, I've been living in Ireland for about 17 years now, and currently I'm a business student at Dublin City University, and I'm studying global business France. And recently I took over the role of the host of the Business Student podcast from Amanda Uwasa. She also studied my course, and the person that hosted the podcast before also studied my course, but I promise it's not nepotism. And overall, yeah, that's what I do.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm very excited, like I said, to welcome you to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Today, just so you know, is the 1st of September, 2025. And how's your day going thus far?
Oh, it's been going pretty great. I've been kind of running around all over the place, cleaning up the house, kind of just getting ready for the start of the school year. I woke up pretty late this morning. Uh, I think I stayed up too late with my sister, watching Netflix, and it's been a great day. Of course, there's been a bit of rain, as always in Ireland, but it was only 3 minutes, and then of course sunshine. But no, it's been a really great day. September is a pretty important day, I guess, for Polish people, because it's the start of the Second World War. But that's kind of just a small kind of fun fact.
Well, so was it excited to have you on the show, and so there's so much that I think that we can speak about within this recording today. But I actually want to start off by allowing you to actually say, where do you think your story has started?
Well, I think where I fell in love with business, because I've had my eye on the course that I'm doing at the moment since transition year, which means I was around 16, 17. It started when I took over the school shop at my Polish weekend school, where I work at now, as a maths teacher. It was a very kind of special thing that I thought, okay, I'll put myself out of my comfort zone, and I started running the shop. And honestly, it was just where I fell in love with business and entrepreneurship. Honestly, there was a point in my life where I was quite depressed, and I lost all my friends, had suicidal thoughts. But I think one of the things that kind of kept me going was coming to the school each week and knowing that I was needed as a kind of like just to run the shop. So each Saturday, I knew, okay, I have to last another week, and that kind of got me eventually out of that kind of slump. So that's kind of where I got started with business.
But I'm glad that the shop was able to, I mean, to help give you something to look forward to, and help build a routine. And was it? And I am sorry to hear about some of the suicidal thoughts that you had earlier. But how has everything been? I guess since that progression.
Well, it's been about 2 years now since that happened, and after that, I ran the shop for another year, and now my sister runs it. But honestly, my life just took a complete 180 turn, a 180-degree turn. I met my best friend Diego. He's doing maths in Trinity College in Dublin, the most kind of like prestigious university in Dublin, and he is honestly my best friend that I'll always kind of like just remember. He also got me out of that slump because he was like the first real friend. And honestly, after that, once I started going to university in DCU, it was just like it kept on getting better and better. And then I realized how much I love business and how much I just love doing the course in general, meeting the friends, having new hobbies such as rowing. Uh, that's just a sport I really fell in love with over the past year, just the people I've met. And kind of just because of that, I think you just have to go through a breakdown to like break through kind of like uh, the bad parts of life to get to the good parts, and just to show you how bad life can get, so you know how good it can be. and just be grateful for that.
Well, I like the sentiment that you just mentioned a few moments ago about going through a breakdown to get to a breakthrough. Are you able to speak a little bit more about that?
Uh, I remember like the darkest moments of my life where I was still kind of going to like my typical kind of school during the week, and it was just such a dark part of my life because I'd be just going through school and just going through the suicidal plan I had, and that was just a really dark moment. But when I reflect on that, it felt like once I got past through that, I say to a lot of people that it feels like a new person and this is a new life. So honestly, there's like two Carols, the one before that, and then the one that got out of it, and yeah, it's just kind of like amazing that like bad things can turn into good things, and that's the beautiful thing about life. And I guess I guess it's similar in business in general that companies will go through change. They'll be just nothing will be going well, but once they get through that, they're a new type of business. They discover their strengths and they kind of just um, grow a lot more from that.
Well, it's interesting that that you're able to to relate that even to the business side of things, and yeah, and having to not just go through but also uncover you know where you were then and who you are now, and then the process that happened from the first point to the second point, and oftentimes that's a journey that it might truly just be yours and your best friends, but nevertheless, it's a monumental part of your life.
Yeah.
And I did want to say too that thank you so much for even us sharing that part of your personal story.
Well, honestly, thing is, people are surprised when I share these things. Some of my, let's say, people that I know don't agree with my kind of like philosophy of sharing these things, but I think it's just important to just like come to terms with that. Yeah, okay, it sounds very sad, but if I don't speak about it normally, then what's the point of going through it if I don't think it's like a normal thing that a lot of people go through? So you have to kind of like speak about those things.
Yeah, I definitely believe that for for any part of us, that if we're interested in sharing the story, our decision, to make, that it should truly be open for us to do it. Now, some conversations might take a little bit longer and more in depth to fully realize it and to give it the respect it deserves. But nevertheless, that doesn't mean that we don't have that conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I definitely will say, as a podcast host, I think it's always an interesting tightrope to walk in the sense of wanting to know about someone's personal stories, but also understanding that, that these stories are also personal to them. And so it's important to make sure that you give it the respect and understanding that it really does deserve.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely have to think a lot about how to phrase it once I start recording episodes for my own podcast. Because I think like when you go on LinkedIn, let's say for example, a lot of the things you'll see is people being very very vulnerable, and it's hard to tell. Oh, if I do this too, am I trying to kind of like be clickbaity, just by being vulnerable, or am I actually helping people with what I say? So I think it is just very tightrope to walk. But I have always been kind of like this, just after that kind of like period where I just share with everyone. So it will be kind of like a tightrope to walk.
Well, I'm definitely so excited for when you are able to record episodes. And actually, since this is a little bit more on the recent side of things, I did want to ask. So, you've recently been over the past several weeks been announced as the next host of the Business Student Podcast. And first of all, how was that for you? Are you excited?
Yeah. Before I was actually meant to have a co-host, but things turn out poorly, just like with people's internships. So it is kind of stressful thinking that, oh, I have to do this on my own and how will I manage? But when I think back to like let's say Parkinson's law, well, I'll just find a way to do it. and even if it's, let's say, slightly worse quality, that I it takes me like 3 days instead of I should do a episode in 5 days. It's better to just get it done and show myself, okay, I can do this, and then over time just get better. I'm really excited for it, even though I know I don't have the attributes sometimes to be a great host. Because, for example, my voice isn't always the most clear in general. I've always been working on that, kind of just to get better and better with my voice. So just doing the podcast, I think it's a very important thing for me to step out of my comfort zone, and I'll get to improve uh, my voice, my interviewing skills, my research skills, and everything just through the podcast. So I'm very excited for it.
Well, I'm glad that you are excited for it. And out of curiosity, since I didn't know about the, I guess, should have been co-host part. So was that when you originally were expected to have a co-host? Was that a decision that that you had made, or the previous host, or the podcast itself, or how did that come about? And when did you find out it was going to be you solo?
So I applied for the role about in, I think, March or April. It came about from a kind of chance encounter with kind of like the faculty rep for the business school. She recommended that I apply. And once I applied and went through the interview process, the previous host, Amanda, she picked two people that she thought were the best for it. And she decided that there would be two hosts, as she said multiple times that she really wished she had a co host to kind of like divide the workload. But then my first potential co host, her internship that she's starting now, um, they said that she can do media stuff. So then it was like a time to find another person. Amanda found another person, and then after a few weeks, he said that he's not able to do it because just management time wise. And I was like, oh, I'll feel like that as well, that I won't have enough time. But uh, these kind of things happen, and there's probably a reason for it, for me doing the podcast on my own. And I'm guessing it might be easier logistically because it's just like not having to coordinate with people, where to record, the emailing. It kind of reminds me of when I was running the school shop. For the first year, in kind of like the main kind of like management side of the shop, it was like me and two other people. But then two of those people finished school, so they weren't kind of like students anymore. Therefore, I had to do it on my own. Also, I was pretty stressed at the start of that year, where I was doing school shop on my own. But then it turned out that it was completely grand. That it was actually just easier logistically. So I'm not that worried about it now.
Well, that makes sense. And yeah, I'm glad at least that, you're taking up this challenge on your own. And like, what have you, I guess, been preparing during this time? And I know you said that you were recommended to apply for this position. So, like, what type of research did you do even to prepare for the position? Did you know about the podcast beforehand?
Uh, well, in kind of like when we were applying, Amanda, one of the questions was like, how do we completely innovate the podcast? And the way I thought about it, I recently started a poetry newsletter for my own poetry, and I publish it on Substack. I think it's a great platform, so that's kind of the idea I had for that question: how to completely innovate the podcast was to also have it on Substack, kind of like to have a new discovery platform for it. So that was the way I kind of prepared. I made a pitch, and then the other kind of like specific question that Amanda had was, who would our guest interview be? Our dream guest would be, and I thought of Stephen Bartlett. I think from Diary of a CEO, because he's pretty, not just that because he's pretty known, but I really enjoy the way he interviews people. The fact that he can just get people to be uh, very vulnerable in a way that doesn't feel like forced. And as well as that, just the fact that he thinks about the people that listen to the podcast. I remember him saying a few episodes ago that why he asked his guests to clarify things that even though he knows that he knows, he'll clarify them for his kind of listeners. As I think a few years ago, he had he was in a prison, and a prisoner was listening to the podcast, but that the prisoner I think told him that he doesn't understand a lot of things, so he kind of can't listen to the episodes properly because he just doesn't have that education. So after that moment, I think Stephen started asking his guests, "Oh, what does this mean? What does this acronym mean?" And stuff like that. So I kind of just really identify with his philosophy on like listening to the viewers, improving every single time, and as well just being vulnerable.
Well, I like that you were able to, I mean, to use some of your previous skills and some of your interest, especially in, like I said, in listening to the other podcasts and trying to develop. Yeah, I like that you were able to take some of your own skills and then some of your own interests and use that into developing your own voice for what you'd want to do for your podcast and some of the preparation that you've been doing since the time that you're selected. Would you say that any of that has changed or shifted, or is there anything that you want to make more of your own than let's say that you had originally thought?
Well, in the when I was preparing for the interview, that was kind of like the main kind of like logistical things I was thinking about, but I didn't have kind of like the main message I wanted to tell people. But over time, I think the main thing that has changed has been the fact that I know what kind of like thing I wanted to say to business students, and it's that they can do the things that they want, uh, while making like the money they want in a way, so that they can be fulfilled financially and creatively. A lot of my friends, I just see that in them, and it really inspires me. I also like to do the same. I write poetry, and I'm publishing a book at the moment. Um, so I think that's just what I want to show people, that you can do like a internship that maybe pays slightly less than what the big four accounting firms would pay, but you can still kind of just make that work and be fulfilled creatively and financially.
I love that, and I like that, like I said, that you are able to implement your own voice. And I guess, do you have any thoughts about how you'd want to both, of course, continue the podcast because it does already, exist and has had, I believe, two hosts before, but then also making sure that, let's say, your voice is seen, because I think it's an interesting sort of challenge. Although I definitely think you can make it a fun one, where you're sort of having to start over, but then also continue on at the same time.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting challenge for sure. When I was listening to the episodes, kind of in preparation for the interview, because I hadn't heard of the podcast beforehand, and I wanted to prepare, of course, and brainstorm some questions. Uh, that was kind of like the main thing. I was thinking, okay, how do I make this my own, but also keep some parts of it the same. And I really liked when the previous hosts, Amanda, and then before that, Kalina, they interviewed entrepreneurs, and you kind of got to know, oh, why does this person want to do this? What really drives them? Some of their story. Because, like, there are definitely other places kind of that will teach you the hard skills of accounting, of kind of networking in a way that is more formal, but when you get to know the person behind the guest, uh, that kind of is a lot more valuable because I can look up how to do this and this and how to make a presentation, how to make a presentation look good. But once I get to hear that the person that made that presentation look good and how they learned that, and kind of like what drives them, that kind of makes them more memorable. Because if I just wanted to learn how to make a pitch to a venture capital fund, for example, I could get other sources, but I think what the podcast really needs is someone that tells stories of business students that are doing what they want to do while still, making it financially.
Oh, I mean, I fully agree. I think that, I mean, even for me, I really enjoy like technology and learning about like that side of things. But something that I started doing when I started going into having guests on my podcast, I didn't just want to speak about the technology. I don't want to just go into why do you like this phone? You know, I don't want to just do that. I want to explore, you know, who are you as a person and how does that relate back to, to your life? I've had people now on this version of my show that maybe like you, that they're a business student, but they're telling me why they want to be a business student. What do they want to do with their business? And then like for engineering people, like why do they want to go into that field? Everyone has their own unique story, and I know for me and my voice, I like telling, being that storyteller, to uh, to ask those questions, have fun with it, but then allow the guests to tell their own story in the way that they want to tell it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm so excited, like I said, for your time, like I said, as the host of the Business Student Podcast. So how, like as of right now, is sort of the timeline of everything? Do you know when you're going to start that first recording, if you
I
haven't
think
already?
logistically wise, once I start university, which is DCU starts next week, I think I'll be able to find room. There's a lot of radio rooms at the university on campus where I'll be able to record, and I think I'll start recording there once I get that. At the moment, I'm looking at trying to find guests. I have some guests already in mind. Some of my friends, of course, but also people that I admire in the business field, entrepreneurship field. Uh, and I'm just kind of reaching out at the moment for guests.
How does it feel reaching out as now a up and coming podcast host yourself?
I think for some people, it would definitely feel embarrassing or awkward that, like, oh, I have this podcast. Would you like to come on? Because sometimes, there's sometimes jokes of podcast bros and stuff like that, that there's just stereotypes of podcasts, of someone having a podcast. But for me, it doesn't feel that way. Because the way I look at things that look embarrassing to other people is that I do embarrassing things on purpose to do the more embarrassing thing later. For example, um, let's say I sweat a lot at the gym. Let's say when I'm training rowing, and it feels really awkward. It feels like, oh god, everybody's watching me dripping in sweat on the rowing machine, and I'm like thinking, God, I just want to stop. But then I tell myself, okay, if you get through this, then this proves to you that, oh yeah, I can do embarrassing things that are beneficial to me. So that's kind of like the way I make things not embarrassing for myself in a way, if you get what I mean.
Oh, I 100% get what you mean, and sometimes with, I think, awkward situations, it's best to just make the most of it, own it. And I know for myself, as someone that teaches at the university level, that there's sometimes that I might forget something, or uh, I might mention something as a topic and then remember, wait, that's not right. I might be referring to 2 pages from now or a chapter from now, getting ahead of myself. Or I might speak about eye contact and not making eye contact with students myself. And so sometimes it's just sort of playing around with it. I know, and I think my second ever class I taught in person last year, in late August, that I just made fun of it. It felt almost like being a comedian in a sense, because you just have to go with it, like having technical difficulties, just being able to make jokes about it. Everyone has their own sort of sense of humor and style, so I kind of like that you're able to put that into your own personality and how you deliver things.
Yeah, I really relate to that because I do teach at the moment at my Polish school. So it is only on Saturdays. So I'm technically not an actual teacher because we don't have to have qualifications. There are some Polish schools that where you need actual qualifications because it's like attached to the government, attached to embassies. But like being a teacher, I mostly teach like let's say 10 to like 14-year olds, and it is it can be awkward because it's you're in a classroom and then you just start hearing proper brain rot just while you make a mistake or something, but then you just have to laugh it off and honestly just join in on the fun because I'm only teaching them 1 day a week. It's not that I have to concentrate on them getting the math skills, let's say, but it's just getting students to enjoy the subject in a way that they'll remember in 20 years. Oh, Mr. Carroll, he was teaching me 20 years ago, and that's kind of how I got my love for maths, let's say. So it's just kind of like, you know, making fun of yourself as well, that for students to like you, for you to like yourself. Because if you're being too serious in a classroom like that, I don't think it's just kind of like the best way uh, to teach. Because then students will notice it, you'll notice it, and you'll be teaching in a lot worse way.
Oh, I 100% agree. And I did actually want to sort of dive into a little bit, into your teaching. So, how long have you, been teaching, and what really got you into it?
So I've been teaching for the past year, and this will be my second year. Kind of like my last year because I'll be moving to France for my degree in the next academic year. But it was kind of like a natural thing for me to join the school after I finished my final exam in secondary school. A lot of my friends that did the Polish school uh, with me, but were slightly older than me. They joined as teachers as well. It was kind of like a natural thing for me to do because my ma also works in the preschool part of the school. We're a pretty big school. There's over 500 students. It's kind of like the biggest Polish school in Ireland. And it was why I joined it was mostly that like I just can't imagine waking up on a Saturday at 7 or 8 a.m. just to go there because I've been going there my whole life. But it's such a great community. I always felt like, you're friends with the teachers, even though they can be older than you, uh, like 20, 40 years older than you. Like, it's just such a great community. And I just can't imagine my life without it.
I love that. And I'm so glad that, that you're able to have something that is able to, bring you some of that stability, especially when, when you're doing so many other things within your life, from your poetry to being a student yourself. And so, how is it with balancing everything?
I think it's always just a tightrope of like, will I be able to balance this? Will I be able to still have a social life? And I kind of always think when I take on a new project, okay, will I be able to manage this? Yeah, because I'll just do other things faster. Because Parkinson's law and stuff like that. It's I don't know. I think I honestly I don't know how I managed it. Sometimes because I did study a lot. Let's say for my leaving cert, which is the final exam in Ireland, in secondary school. I think I studied about 3 hours a day, but I don't know. I honestly don't know how I managed it. It was just always like, okay, get this done, get this done. Once I finish, let's say if I do all my poetry kind of like promotion in, let's say on a Friday, then I can study on a Saturday, stuff like that. It's just kind of just going with what is most important. It's just going back to the basics of time management. Do your most important thing first. Don't kind of like spend more time than you allocated. It's just kind of the basics.
Well, that makes sense, and I like that you're able to, to fully embrace that. You have all these things that you're just gonna, do it and make the most of the time. And since you mentioned Parkinson's law a few times, are you able to, to speak about overall, like, well, one, for those who may not know what Parkinson's law is, and then how that sort of relates to you?
Yeah. So Parkinson's law states that we fill like the time we allocate to a task to the time we give ourselves. So if I say that my deadline for finishing writing my poetry book is end of September, then it'll take me till the end of September. If I say it'll take me till I have my deadline until December, it'll take me until December. And honestly, I don't think I've spoken about like explicitly until this interview. but it does really help. Kind of just like with thinking, "Oh, don't take this too seriously. If you woke up late, it'll be okay. You know, you'll just fill the time somehow, and life's not that serious. If you don't get all your stuff done in a day, then that's life."
I love how that you're able to truly, relate that back to, to your life, and even with this being sort of the first time, I guess I guess consciously have thought about that and put it in your own words. I guess how does it feel to almost be able to claim that as a part of yourself?
Uh, like the Parkinson's law.
Yeah,
Um, honest. Let me think. I think I've always been pretty self-aware, but when I kind of like say things out loud or write them, it really helps solidify it in my thought process. That like, oh, this is an actual part of me. So, especially with poetry, when I write out my thoughts, that's when they become part of me. If I don't write down grateful for something, I won't be grateful for it because I'll forget it. So, kind of saying these things out loud, writing them down, it's a very important part. To like, even if you're self-aware, you have to write these things down anyway, because your mind won't think they're important enough. Because you'll have a million thoughts in a day, but you'll only write so many words in a day. So your brain will think, okay, this is a lot more important than thought of me. I know having to take out my trash. It'll actually stick and remember that I wrote this down. This is important.
I love that, and I know for myself too. I always love being able to, to take notes and then to repeat those same thoughts. Even for this discussion, I'm taking physical notes of what we're saying because I feel it's important. It helps me remember different pieces of the conversation, and so I think that's always such a an important part of communicating, even to remember why you are doing something, why you are writing it down, because it really does matter.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I wanted to also ask you, um, kind of the process of you starting the podcast, because I am starting my own podcast, like the Business Student podcast, and kind of how important do you think, uh, what kind of like the part of writing, how important is that to the podcast, of just run your own thing? Because I think even though podcasts are audio based, it's very important to write stuff down as well. So maybe I kind of want to ask you about that.
Oh, absolutely, and feel free throughout this discussion to ask us as many questions as you'd like. But I'd say that for me, writing things down allows for me to, to pinpoint where we are within a discussion, and then why each part matters. So, like you mentioned a few times, for instance, Parkinson's law. That's why I had to, definitely ask about it because I feel that whether consciously or subconsciously, when we mention things more than once, that usually is a key for us to latch onto it, especially when you can tell someone's really passionate in what they do. That I feel it's so important to, to make a note of that, and even like how we choose our words. I feel matters so much, and of course, you as a poet, I'm sure know a lot about choosing your words carefully, and then since you are multilingual, I'm sure even choosing like which language you convey a certain word in, I feel definitely matters.
Oh yeah, it definitely does. It's also very important to like recognize that your first draft will always be not the best. It'll be true and raw, but won't always be the best. Sometimes when I write my poems, I'll put in too many words, and then once I start editing them to publish, I'll be like, okay, this isn't really like that useful. It'll be like, we have a saying in Polish that like someone is like buttery butter, which just means like you're being yourself, kind of. So I'll just like take out the buttery butter out of the poem. Uh, so yeah, words are really important because just if you just blabber in a poem, it'll be obvious to a reader that okay, there's a thought here, but I don't really get what the poet is getting at if it's just a bunch of words and you don't edit them down.
And that's absolutely so true. I mean, even for podcasting, something that I'm very conscious about too, because as much as critical as I can potentially be of my own hosting style at times, is realizing that these are live conversations, and I always want to make sure I'm a honest and effective communicator. And sometimes I might look at a conversation and say, "Oh my gosh, Brandon, what were you thinking? You took a random long pause, or you couldn't come up with your words." But also using that as a learning experience. And so, yes, of course, I'm going to go back and I'm going to edit. But I do my best to edit in such a way that doesn't change the conversation that we already had. I don't want to go back and re-record myself like 5 times trying to say the same thing. I'm just going to never get it right, but instead just acknowledge and accept, okay, maybe I didn't do the best with this interview, but let me study this. I'll release the episode. Yeah, of course, I'll clean up a little to not distract from the guest. That's very important to me. That even with as many, let's see, as much as I want to be uh, keep almost the exact interview in the way that it was, I want to make sure it doesn't take away from the guest I spoke to. So if I have to repeat myself 5 times, I'm not going to keep all 5 times of myself in there. But maybe, like, if I make a little mistake, I might leave that in there, not because I was lazy in editing, but because it shows that we're genuine human beings. We make mistakes and we can learn from it. I don't like doing a lot of uh, over the top.
Yeah, exactly. Because even when I'm talking now, it's been a long time since I've given an interview, and then if I could go back in time, I'd stop myself from saying honestly about 5 times in this interview already when I'm answering a question, or me saying yeah exactly a few times in this conversation, which I know next time I'm giving an interview or I'm hosting a podcast, I like okay, make a mental note of don't say that, because if you don't like it yourself, then probably not that people will be annoyed by it, but it's just small improvement I can make.
Absolutely. And I would say too that I mean even being I guess critical in myself and how I can go through things is that I always enjoyed the interview, especially the first time around when we're having it live like we are right now. But then it's so interesting. Going back and editing feels like, at least for me, that like I have the conversation memorized and I'm not really in the same I guess workflow. And so it's all about okay, I made a mistake here, made a mistake here, made a mistake here. Fix it up, edit it down, add like the lower thirds for our names and everything. But since I do a video podcast, but it's so interesting because weeks later I can rewatch it and it feels almost brand new. And I'm taking even more notes than I was the first time and trying to say, oh, wow, like they said that. And that's so profound. It's like, okay, I want to learn more. It's like, did I ask a follow up question? Oh, good, I did. Or, oh, no, I didn't ask that. I'll have to ask that later.
Yeah, like I feel like I already feel like after this conversation, I'll be like learn so much about myself, because even though I say a lot of these things, just repeating them to myself and hearing like talking to someone I've never talked to before, it's already taught me so much about how I like to conduct a conversation, how to prepare for an interview, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I feel that a part of being a good host, and at least in my opinion, is especially for having a podcast where we interview guests, is I like being able to make it about the guests and let you learn things about us as the host through the discussions. But then it's also important, let's say, to get on other people's platforms and tell a little bit more about yourself and sort of like these cross interviews, so to speak. And so for anyone that might be tuning in now and hasn't tuned into your show, hopefully they will feel encouraged and say, "Oh, Carol seems pretty cool. Let me go ahead and tune in and and learn more about you for your show.
Yeah, I really hope that happens because having a global audience, I think, is really beneficial. Because I haven't like met a lot of people outside of, let's say, Europe. Like, of course, there'll be international students and people that visit Dublin, and you'll be passing them on the street. But having like a proper conversation with someone that is like on another side of the world from me, it's like that'd be great. Let's say to interview someone that listened to this podcast and thinking, "Oh, I agreed to do this interview, and I'm really happy to do it," and then this thing kind of happened out of it. So it's always like saying yes is also a really important part of my life. Kind of like agreeing to projects that seem like, oh, where's this meant to like help me go further? And then you think back years later, oh, this is how it was meant to help me, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even like for making those connections, I think something you'll find as you speak with more people is how many people say that they want to be back on, even if they themselves are not on, but people that are like friends of them or people that may have heard their discussion and be like, wow, yeah, Carol gave that interview. Yeah, I want to be on that show. It's so shocking, I think, for me within this past year. Some of the people I reach out to that may live on a completely different part of for me the United States or even another country. And when I reach out to them, they say, "Oh my gosh, I watched your show and you interviewed my friend." And I'm like, I never even knew you knew I existed, let alone that you watched my show. And so it feels, so surreal, but so exciting at the same time.
Yeah, I think friends especially are just a really good way for people to discover podcasts specifically like these. Because like word of mouth for a podcast is everything because there's no like integrated kind of ways for people to discover a podcast, let's say on Spotify or um, or on Apple Podcasts or on LinkedIn in a way. It's so word of mouth is everything. Because if I get someone that has a lot of really cool friends in a way, and they say, "Oh, I was interviewed by this guy on a podcast. You should really listen to this," because, or like they won't even have to say, "Oh, you should really listen to this." The friends will listen to it anyway, because I do that for my friends. No, they do it for me. So that's kind of also like just a way to think about like, okay, if I want to grow the podcast and have it grow more than the previous hosts, I have to think about, if when I'm finding guests, how will they help me grow, but also like what can I learn from them uh, to run the podcast? Because I've already gotten a lot of good advice from you during this conversation that like, oh, I'll be able to use this to kind of like help me grow.
Thank you, and yeah, I definitely am so excited. Like I said to see your growth, see who you end up interviewing, and I'm excited to hear some of their stories, some of the advice that you'll be giving out to business students, and even like in terms of those those interactions and referrals. I mean, I know even leading up to us discussing like it's so interesting because I interviewed someone back, I believe, at the end of 2023 on my podcast, and I really enjoyed our conversation. But then that person got interviewed on someone else's podcast, and so I had that host of that podcast on my show. Then they were interviewed by they did an interview swap with a different podcast host, the predecessor for your show, Amanda, and then now you're here. What's that? Succeeding her as the host of the Business Student podcast, and so it's almost like a sort of chain of like 4 or 5 or 6, if you will, of how we even got connected. So it's so fun to be able to, explore that, and you never know what this might lead to in the future.
Yeah, that was really like fun and beautiful about the world because I think I remember a few years I was listening to a podcast from Freakonomics Radio, and I think someone did a maths paper where they discovered that everyone like kind of like knows each other from 7 connections away. You're only like 7 connections away from knowing anybody on this planet. Maybe like not everyone, but I think that's kind of like the average kind of amount of connections you need to know anybody in the world. Somewhere around that number.
I mean, I so much believe it. I mean, like I said, I mean, I had spoken to so many people over the years, and I've had some people say like, yeah, how are you able to do it? Or some, uh, I've had some guests in the past even say like, well, I've always wanted to start off a podcast or some content or YouTube video, but like I'm introverted and I don't really want to do that. It's like, well, if you haven't figured out by now, like I'm very introverted myself, and so knowing that I have over 100 people that like I've had a chance to speak to on a platform like this, I think is so unbelievable. And even as you were saying earlier that you want to invite some of your personal friends, like as some of your first guests, that's exactly what I did. I didn't really know what to do in terms of reaching out to other people, so I was like, you know what, let's reach out to some friends. Some I've spoken to almost daily. Others, maybe I haven't heard from in a few years. But it's so fun to be able to connect and reconnect. And you learn so much about another person in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I'm really excited to interview my friends because not because they're my friends, but I think they're amazing people that I'm really grateful for. Uh, like a few days ago, now this will sound weird that I'm saying this, but I was really drunk and I was just crying on the phone to my friend for an hour how grateful I am for them all. And I know that some of my friends, some of them don't even do business, but I think what they've learned and their story is really applicable to just the kind of message I want to show to people. Where, um, for example, I have one friend really want to interview. She started the same course as me, but she was going to go to Canada instead of France. And after like a few weeks, she realized that, oh yeah, she didn't really like business. So now she's starting up again in DCU doing communications instead of business. And some people, when they hear the interview, they will be like thinking, she's not a business student. How's this relevant to me? But then I think her message of like her doing what she wants because she told me that like, oh, it feels weird that I'm like switching majors and that like people will judge me for doing like a degree like communications that like some people might look down upon. And then I'm like thinking, yeah, but I'm really proud of you for like doing what you want because uh, let's say it's just like someone I really agree with that like you should be doing that. You should do what you want because it'll all work out in the end.
I so love that, and I'm so excited I said, for you to have that discussion. Definitely be sure to send me the link when you are able to, to get that one out. Especially as someone that studied communication, I'm just so excited, like I said, to tune into that story as especially.
And that'll be yeah, it'll be great. And I'll tell her that you're excited to hear about that.
Yeah, I definitely am. And so going back a little bit to your story, I guess before we even get to the poetry, I'm so excited to get to that part. But I know you were saying a little bit in your introduction that you are indeed Polish, but you do live in Ireland, but are going to move to France next year.
Hmm. I'm semi excited, semi scared about moving away. Not because I don't think I'll be able to live on my own, but just like realizing, oh, I only have about 10 times I'm gonna pass this street in Dublin, or I'll only walk to DCU campus only about 60 times because I only have one semester left on campus and then I'm doing an internship. Uh, Over the past few years, just like with DCU, and I really love walking, so I've really explored Dublin throughout completely. I just really love the city, even though me from let's say 10 years ago wouldn't have expected for me to be saying that I'll really miss Dublin. But I'm also just excited to move away because it's just a new experience, and I'm excited how that helps me kind of like grow as a person, and it'll be new things to write about my poetry, just about living abroad.
Well, I'm so was excited for you to have that experience, and I know that you mentioned that you're excited to move, and you mentioned, of course, in your your written bio that you've lived. there in Dublin for, I believe you said, 17 years.
Yeah, yeah. Moved here when I was three. With my family, my dad moved a year earlier for construction, but then, as you can probably guess from the amount of time, it was 2008. So we kind of stayed here. We've been staying here for a while. Once I kind of started secondary school, it was kind of like, I guess it was kind of like too late to move back because I was already so entrenched in the school system. Because Poland, it's a bit of a different education system. It's more mainstream European. So I think that we just kind of never moved back. But honestly, I really enjoy my life here. And you never know, I might move back here after my degree.
Well, definitely only time will tell. Do you remember anything? I know that you were free, but do you remember anything from before you moved to Ireland?
Um, there's a few videos of me and my parents in my apartment, but I don't really remember like home specifically itself when I was three. Uh, but in terms of that, my first memory here was kind of when my sister was born. Uh, it was she came in her buggy and all, and there's a balloon attached to her buggy, and me, who's just kind of like this person, this kind of shows what my personality is. I untied the balloon, walked out onto the balcony, and then uh, thing uh, released it, and it was she's never forgiven me for that, even though she was on. No, has she forgiven me? I don't know, but it was kind of like my first memory here, and then just kind of like that general time. She was born here after like a year after we came here with my ma. Then kind of like the next memory was happening in this room actually. Uh, there's a window 2 meters away from here where me, my grandma, who came here to see my sister being born, kind of like taking care of the family for that time. We were standing here, and it was, I believe, I don't know. So that must have been my first memory because it was Halloween, and my sister was born the 3rd of November. It was me, my grandma, my dad, and my ma standing by the window and just looking at the fireworks for the first time. That was my first time, I guess, seeing fireworks. So actually, that is my first memory when I think about it.
Well, that definitely is an interesting set of first memories, and I'm glad that your sister finally forgave you. Even if that was such a long time ago.
Yeah. Uh, did you have any siblings yourself? Kind of like, what is your relationship with them?
Oh yeah, so I have one brother who is almost 4 years younger than me, and so he's out in college right now. But I mean, we're definitely very close, and so it's always fun being able to have that lovely sibling banter, so to speak, and so many inside jokes, most about TV shows that we watch. And being able to quote things at random, and we know exactly what it is that that it means, and so it's so fun. I think being able to share this life with someone so close to you, especially a sibling.
Do you live far away for each other from each other? Because I know I'll be moving away, and I know I'll miss my sister a lot. I've been trying to spend as much time with her this past year, kind of just like, and this next year. So kind of like, do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, I mean, my brother lives about an hour away, but despite that, it's we don't travel to that area too much, which is
Mhm.
purely ironic because I my teaching job is at the university that he attends, which is purely coincidental. It was not planned like that, but I don't know. It definitely I think hit so weird in the moving process, which was about a year and a week ago, or a year and 2 weeks ago, and so I don't know. I think dropping him off at at college, helping prepare his room, but then having to walk away and with the family and realizing that he's staying there. I think that's really when it really hit, or something like, let's say, like one of our shows that we watch together comes on, and not being able to just run upstairs and just clap and show him the
Mhm.
scene. I think that's when it really hits. But I think it's so important. I mean, to also know yourself and for you to know your sister, and knowing sort of what type of things do you want to hold special to to the both of you, and how can you stay connected. And so, like, for me and my brother, I mean, when I was there last fall, every year, every day, every week, twice a week, every week, for the fall, at the same time. It was one of those things where, like, I never had to say, can you come visit me? Like, he would just show up to, to my office or to my classroom to say hello. And so it's a part of that. I mean, knowing who we are, and I'm someone that, of course, very values connection, and so, um, and I know for him, he very much uh, shares that value, even if it's in a little different way than me. But then I think in the spring it was a lot harder because I wasn't teaching any classes, and so sometimes it might just be like I would get a little bit more phone calls. It may not be every week, but yeah, I mean, but knowing that you're able to stay connected, and everyone has their own different way of showing it. It may not be as flat out of a, hi, I'm here to check on you sort of thing. It might be more of a subtle thing, like a, this just happened on your show, or I just ran into somebody that you know. So, I mean, you never know, but I think it's so important, I mean, to maintain those relationships as much as possible. One of the things I'm excited to do is to do something simple like send a letter. Like, that's something that's a personal touch for me, and I've always wanted to do. So, I think this will be the year I do it.
Yeah, yeah. That's really good advice, especially when you saying that, like, calling saying hi, I'm checking in. That's not just the one way to kind of like show love. I think that's really important for me, because sometimes I know I'm not the type of person to always call my family, especially my family in Poland, but I still think about them. So that's kind of like a good reminder. Kind of like makes me feel accepted in that way that, oh, even though I sometimes don't make a conscious decision to call them, it still doesn't mean when I see them that I don't show affection.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, it's just one of the many ways that you can, I mean, can show affection. And going into your poetry, I did want to, yeah, I did actually want to ask. So, what really got you? I mean, into poetry? And I know in these past few years that you've really ramped it up, even this year, in the past 2 or 3 months, especially.
Yeah, so I started kind of writing in school when I was about 8 years old. I think we got in the Polish school, we got homework to write a poem. And I think the first proper poem I remember that I wrote was with my dad, and it was about school. It was, of course, a rhyming poem, a very kind of like, funny poem in a way. So my style has changed a lot since then, but that's kind of like 12 years ago. That's when I started. But over the years, I wrote a bit. It was mostly rhyme and stuff. And then at the start of the pandemic, uh, I made an Instagram account for my poetry, and I switched to writing in English for some reason. Well, the actual reason is I thought, okay, maybe this is how I make money from this, and that was kind of like a bit weird that I was thinking about money at like 15 in that way, and I kind of only had that account for 2 years. It got to like 5,000 followers, which is not important, but uh, at the end, it became a real chore to write it because I changed my style so much to like kind of like Sue Instagram poetry, kind of that aesthetic, and it was like it drained the life out of me. And this will sound funny, but I'd get home from school, like once the lockdowns were lifted, and I'll go to the toilet and I'll write some dumb shitty quote there, and eventually I just like realized I don't like this. And just one day, I just stopped writing, and thank God I did. I switched back to Polish, and then after a year or two, it was, I think, the September of 2023. There's a teacher that joined our Polish school, and my Polish teacher recommended that this teacher kind of like look at my poetry because she saw the potential in me. And a lot of my Polish teachers saw that potential and always encouraged me to like go to competitions, recite my poetry, uh, just send it to different competitions. And that teacher, once she read my poetry, she eventually found a sponsor to publish a poetry book that I published last year. at the start of the year. It was technically it was published in 2023 when kind of like the ISBN number was put on it and it was officially published. But I published it kind of like mostly kind of like published it last year. Uh, that was a great experience, and kind of like when I really understood that I love poetry and I just want to surround my life with it was at the poetry night of the book, at the launch kind of party of the book, and I signed my poem in front of people, making jokes, which I was like really surprised that I'm coming up with these jokes on the spot, and I'm talking and talking. There were a few girls from the Polish school that were interviewing me as part of the night, and I was like, God, I absolutely love this, and this is what I want to do. Uh, so I was like, yeah, that was the night where I realized, okay, long term, I want to be a poet full time, surround myself with kind of like art in that way. So that's kind of like my long term plan in the future. Even though if it doesn't happen, let's say in the next 10 years, it'll happen in the next 20 years. I'll just do that full time. Yeah,
First of all, I mean, I really love, I mean, what you're saying about how you got into poetry and how you started sharing it, and that while you initially started switching up your, your style for, views and money, that you were able to, I mean, to take a break and be more of yourself in how you shared, I mean, your work and your art.
yeah. I've it's really ramped up how I just promote it because I see that as a way of respecting myself. That like, I can't just write and then expect to do it full time if I don't actually put in the work to promote it. And I have to find ways for me to enjoy it, and I really do enjoy it now. At the moment, I do a newsletter where I analyze some of my poems and just kind of like explain the backstory of it. And even though it's only in its early days, I can tell, okay, I actually really enjoy this because then I can understand myself better the way I like to write and recording TikToks, let's say, of me reciting my poems uh, that's also really enjoyable. At the start, it was quite not that wasn't unenjoyable, but I did get some hate comments, which I didn't really care about because I knew, okay, I know I have an unclear voice. I'm still reciting. I don't care what people say, and I've really come to enjoy it. That like, just getting into the feel of saying the poem out loud, and it really reminds me of like why I love to do it. And recently, one of my videos blew up, and it got like 7,000 likes, which for like Polish is a lot better. Is really good. Uh, and I was just talking and yapping about of my notebooks that I have, and it was just being me, even though it didn't seem like it didn't really seem charismatic that you'd see the way you'd see people talking on TikTok, but then I published that anyway. I posted it anyway, and I was like, "Oh, this won't like do any good." But like, it really blew up, and I was like really surprised. Like people saying, "Oh, we love this!" Like, that like he's so sweet. Like kind of like gushing over the fact that I was just sharing my passion. I was like, okay, yeah, I just have to share my passion, and that's really important. Kind of.
I love that. I mean, that you, I mean, using your words that you just said there. I love that you were able to, I mean, to share your passion and to, I mean, and to bring it into yourself. And I think that is just such a, I mean, an important part when we're able to, I mean, to identify what it is that we want to do, and then finding a way to make it happen.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what kind of outside of podcasting and tech, do you have any other passions, or why why are you passionate about technology? Let's say, for example.
Oh, that is such a great question. So I definitely will answer, yeah, both parts of that. So outside of podcasting, technology, and everything, I love actually discussing television shows. And so a few years ago, and that's saying a passion that I share with my whole family, especially my mom. And so a few years ago, I've been podcasting for several years, but a few years ago, me and my mom, we were just having a conversation in the car, and we were just discussing TV, and then she asked, would you be interested in us doing TV discussions. It's something that we've always sort of floated around, but whereas being a podcast host, I've shared my voice through the years, going into 10 years in 2026. But I I don't know. I never did it for like the views. I did it because of my own passion, and I like helping others with technology. That's why I started YouTube, and then going into podcasting. So I mean, to be given that sort of question, I was just like, let's make it happen. So we, officially launched it, so to speak, in 2023. It was just a side project that was sort of an extension of my podcast. Whereas on my podcast, I get to share the stories of others, and in this one, we share the stories of TV. And as I was saying before, that not everyone has the same reaction, like just checking in on you, like not anything explicit like that. Well, a part of me and my mom telling each other stories, while we don't necessarily go a lot into like a specific, like, how was our week, explain our lives, but by being able to discuss TV, that is such a big part of us, and media overall, we're able to have some of those conversations and learn more about ourselves. And so we expanded to our own YouTube channel back in May of last year, and so we've now had, I believe, 200. Let's see how many discussions we have had. We've had a total of 268 discussions thus far, and so it it's been so exciting. So that's, I would say, one of my passions. I got my bachelor's degree in media studies, my master's in lifespan and digital communication. So I think it's fair to say that that it is a major part of who I am.
I really love that, and like the fact that you set a YouTube channel for that. Let's say a lot of hobbies won't like blow up, let's say, and become like the main thing. But I think having those passions, like I know there's a big chance that my poetry never does well enough for me to do it full time. But I just love being passionate about it because I think that when I meet people that aren't passionate, I'm just like, so what am I meant to talk about with you? I can't just talk about myself because that gets really boring very quickly. And a lot of sometimes I know this will really sound bad because I know that a lot of these people probably aren't like impassionate, but I feel like a lot of people in university either they don't share their passions or they don't have any passions, which I just feel very sad for them if they don't have if they truly don't have a passion or they're too scared to show it. Because if you're not passionate, it's just really hard to hang out with anyone. For me, specifically, that like if I can sense that you're not really just passionate about something, you can't nerd out about something. It's just you know, why are you human in a way? Uh, I know the way that sounds, but if you get what I mean.
Oh, I 100% get what you mean. And I know for myself as a podcast, I think this is a really good piece of advice, is that, well, as you saw sort of from my process of how I have to guess, like, fill out a form with some information, is that whereas everyone does that, and technically twice, that always doesn't actually mean that is what per se that they're passion. I mean, that they are passionate enough to discuss. That's something I've noticed. Like, I remember my second ever podcast discussion, because I had done it a few years solo
Mhm.
about tech stuff before moving into personal stories. But I remember I had a guest that my second ever one, that he really wanted to speak about 5G networks. That was what he wanted to discuss. So yeah, I went. Yeah, I was like, okay, let's go for it. And we got into the discussion. We've been planning it out for a month, and we ran out of stuff to talk about after like 2 minutes. So again, I think I learned a good lesson, that maybe that isn't exactly our topic of choice per se, even though that's what we wrote down, that's what we had planned. But now, like in recent years, I've seen that where, let's say, the bio is all about public relations, but we might find out that maybe beaches are actually what they're really passionate about, or something else. And so sometimes it's a part of digging into the personal stories to find what you're really passionate in. Sometimes it's easier than others. Like as I mentioned before, that when I notice that some things are repeated more than once, I can tell that that's something that you want to hold on to, or something you're passionate in, or something about you. But for the same thing in writing, is you don't, for the most part, unless you're sending a text at like midnight, most of the time you're very conscious about what you're going to write or type to someone and hit send to. So especially for a podcast, and so sometimes it's even noticing those things, those details, like, oh, that doesn't sound like the rest of this description. Maybe there's something here. And so if I see, okay, like you said that you want to work out, for instance, that I might be able to ask about that, because that seems like something that it stands out as something that's a little bit different. And maybe there's, like, I feel like there's always a reason as to why you said something. It may not be monumental, it may not be enough to last 10 minutes, let alone hour 12, but I think it's a good starting point, and to find out what someone is really passionate in.
Yeah, exactly. Because especially when I write and I find ideas for my poetry, I always like there's always that second step of like, oh, why did I notice that? Because I can think, oh, I already noticed everything on this walk there is to notice. But if I got to meet another poet, like, why are they noticing the things I didn't notice? And so we're kind of like ideas and the things we say subconsciously, like, it's very important to like notice those things that, oh, I really lit up when I was talking about the poetry. Like, okay, that makes sense, but like, oh yeah, I do really love it, you know? So it's a really good advice, I think, from you to just notice those things.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I mean, appreciate you saying that. And it's so fun, I think, when you're able to, I mean, to speak to someone else that's about to do something that, that you're already doing. And I, I don't know, I think there's such a fun wonder in being able to help out someone and sort of compare notes and be on a journey with someone together. I think that is just so helpful, because sometimes doing this can just feel very, I'm not going to say lonely, but it definitely can feel a bit isolated. And being able to have these sort of conversations and speak with others, because at the end of the day, that it's your story, is your journey, and so what you do is not necessarily the same that everyone else does, but it's kind of fun when you're able to compare notes a little bit.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean that when you said like, oh, it'll feel isolated, and I was expecting you to say, oh, it feels lonely, because even though you're speaking to people, you might be second guessing yourself. Oh, does this person want to talk to me, or are they just doing this to get, I don't know, publicity? And I think, you know, there could be that subconscious part of me of just thinking, oh, if I go on this podcast, then I'll grow my audience by this and this much. But like, I could already tell after 5 minutes of like speaking with you that, oh, you know, it's just a normal conversation that I'm having. And I really love this conversation.
Thank you so much, and I definitely, really enjoy and love this conversation as well. I did actually want to ask you, I said, some additional questions regarding your poetry, and then I'll actually let you. I'll sort of flip the table over to you before we end out this specific session. But for your poetry, I know that you mentioned that you first started sharing your work in English on Instagram back during the pandemic. And so, how was it? Do you remember how it was for you, like writing that? Like, what really got you into like the flow of things? How did you share your stories then, and then comparing that to where you are now with using Substack to share your stories? I know you said it's definitely a very different thought of how you share your thoughts, where it's more genuine now. But I'm curious as to if there's any parallels or anything that you did just a bit differently when you had done Instagram sharing earlier.
I think I was really catering to like the short form when I was writing Instagram poetry. I think it was just like that mindset of like the shorter it is, the more digestible it is, and the more people will read it. Which, yeah, of course, in a way that's true, but it doesn't affect as many people. But I think the main part that is like weaving through me writing back then and me writing now is just trying to connect with people. Always thinking, how do I help one person with this? And I know it's like a really cliche to say, oh, I'd really love if this helped one person. But when I think about helping one person, I first think really selfishly, how do I help myself? Because I know I'm not that unique. There's definitely someone that thinks on a in a similar way to me. So if I help myself first, it'll help someone else.
Yeah, and I mean, something I've always said is, as much as I love helping others and going out of my way to make sure that those other people can help, which is not by any means a bad thing, is that you also have to help others before you help yourself at times, and not to say that in a selfish way, but kind of in the sense that you're no good to anyone if you are like if someone needs help. You're no good if you're all exhausted because you didn't take care of yourself. Then you have two people to worry about, yourself and them. Whereas at the very least, if you make sure that you're always doing well and that your needs are met, then you're better equipped to help out the other person and can have a better state of mind, so to speak.
Yeah, I've always kind of I got that mindset kind of in a way after that dark period a few years ago. Um, like especially kind of like an example of the way I do this is like let's say someone offers me a lift. Let's say a few days ago, I had a kind of like a big teacher meeting for the Polish school, where we kind of like discuss things. We do a bit of trainings, and it's like 34 kilometers away from my house, and I could have gotten a lift, but I knew okay if I cycle there, I'm going to be a lot happier. Yes, I'll be slightly sweaty, but I'll be very happy because it was very nice views. I got a few ideas for my poetry, and I was just more uplifted. But if I was in a car, I'd be like slightly not awake at the meeting. So that was kind of like a way. Once I help myself in that way, once I take care of myself, I'll be able to show up better.
I love that you mentioned that, and I know you discussed earlier that you've been taking a real joy to walking to different locations and taking a more gentler approach, and I like that that you're going through that same philosophy and mentioning that story from just a week or so ago.
Yeah. Like it will sound quite embarrassing, but I did my theory uh nearly 3 years ago now, and I still haven't started my driving lessons. But I guess subconsciously I haven't done those lessons because I still just want to walk, even though I know it's not like once I get my license, that doesn't mean I can't walk. But I guess my mind subconsciously puts it off because, like, oh, maybe it's not that important. I can walk anywhere in Dublin in a way, even if it takes a long time.
What's interesting about you saying that is, for me, it took me quite a while to really get driving, and even though I've been able to drive for about about 4 years, give or take, now, like in actually having my license and everything, is that it wasn't until more recently that I've actually like started going places,
Mhm.
and I think as a part of that is that I've always been someone that's been able to make my own personal adventure, and it felt somewhat superficial in a way to just get in a car and go somewhere in the sense because I mean, I'm not saying that you can't make your own adventure, but it kind of takes away from some of the fun of it.
Yeah, because you're just going directly to a place. But let's say I went camping at the start of this week. Last week with my friend, we took the bus. Yes, I could have drove there, but a funny story is we met up in the city centre, and I realized, oh shit, I forgot to bring a pan. I forgot to put that down on the list. And the bus that went to the place that we were going camping thereabouts, that was in like half an hour. So now we're scrambling. Okay, we have to find a pan, and we did find it, but uh, yeah, it was just a very funny story. And if I went in a car, that wouldn't have happened.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely feel that times you. I don't know. It's just so fun being able to. I mean, to tell those stories, and I did mean to, of course, ask about. I said that camping trip since we were discussing it a little bit via email. Were there any sort of other fun stories, or how was the trip overall for you?
Oh, it was a great trip. It started raining while we were trying to get to a mountain, but we ended up deciding that we'll just stay in a forest. It was it was I think it was a fir forest, so all the pine cones were on the ground, and it was actually really great because it meant the ground was actually surprisingly very dry when we woke up, and it was honestly just really fun camping out in a forest instead of the mountain because I think A, we would have been soaked, and B, we probably wouldn't have fallen asleep because it was fairly windy. But especially when we woke up in that forest in the morning, it was so beautiful, just the sun going through the trees. It was like so great to write about, and I'm really happy that it started raining that never got to that mountain because I wrote the poems I wrote about that trip. So that's also like a way I explained to myself, oh, if a plan changes, I can just write a poem about it. Because a few years ago, I really found it hard to like have changes in my routine or anything. But just kind of like explain that, like, okay, life's not that serious. I'll just write a poem about it. That kind of just makes me like feel like, okay, change is normal. Don't worry about it.
I love that, and I'm so glad. I mean, that you're able to have that experience, especially before school starts and everything. And so, I that just sounds like such a a wonderful experience. And I did want to ask, I guess, as my last question before I hand this back over to you. So, for your Substack, I know that you have been outlining various of parts of your poems and writing some new ones, sharing a bit of your vulnerabilities as well. Earlier today, I actually officially subscribed to your Substack, and so it's been so fun being able to read, of course, the translated versions, of everything, and I just found it such a fun, a fun read, and especially that you're incorporating some short videos.
Oh yeah, that was a very fun kind of trilogy to write about. So for the people that haven't read it, the Google Translate version even, um, about a month ago, I was in Poland, and I was with my grandparents. And one of the days, I decided, oh, I'll go on a walk. But before going on that walk, um, I had a few just bottles of spirits and a bit of not big bottles, just like tiny, small 100 milliliter bottles. But I took that and I went to a field that I found in the middle of nowhere, and then I wrote poems in different kind of states of soberness, and it was just a very fun kind of trilogy to write, and I found out a lot of things about myself. Kind of like realized, oh, I don't have to be like other poets; I can be myself in writing poetry. Now it seems like, oh, that seems so inappropriate to post about. Like, geez, you're ruining poetry, but like, it was such a fun thing to write about that. I don't care if people think it's inappropriate. That was really just fun to write about, and then writing the Substack posts about it. That was just as fun writing about those. So in the last post of that kind of poem trilogy, I put most of the videos that I took while I was fairly drunk, because I think, okay, people will laugh at this, me trying to open a bottle with another bottle, because I forgot to bring my keys to open the bottle. But the main thing I learned from that was that I'm allowed to be myself, that I'm allowed to learn, and that I like the life I live. That was kind of like the main thing that I really enjoy my life at the moment, and I'm really grateful for it. And I'm really grateful for the way I write poetry, even though it's not a typical style in a way that other poets write in. That was kind of like the main thing I learned from that. honestly, I was just laughing at myself and saying, "Carl, what are you doing?" And then in the video, I say, "Carl, what are you doing?" And being just kind of like meta in a way like that. I was like, yeah, I was mostly just laughing at myself that like, oh, I'm really grateful that you are this way and that you can laugh at yourself this way. I was just laughing the whole way through.
I love that. And I guess as the true last question before I hand this back over, just because you made me think about something. So you had one post that you actually likened your love in writing of poetry to addiction, and I thought that was a really interesting like I said read. And so I did want to ask just a little bit about that before we go ahead and close up this discussion.
Oh yeah, so I wrote that poem specifically. I think it was about a year and a half ago, or no, maybe 2 years ago. It's called Nikovena, which it sounds like a nicotine, but the second part, vena, it that just kind of like means muse inspiration, and that's the way I kind of like came up with the title of that and that metaphor. But in terms of poetry being an addiction, I really feel sometimes depending on it to like process feelings, and it's a good addiction. But sometimes it feels like, oh, I'm just chasing another poem. Like trying to write the next best thing that I can write, and that involves going drinking in the field and then drinking and then writing about that and seeing what comes out of that. That's kind of like that chase of like the next best thing that I can write and just chasing just the next poem. That's kind of like why poetry sometimes feels like an addiction.
I definitely, like I said, I mean, love hearing a little bit about that, and it's been Carol. It's been so fun being able to, to speak with you at this time, and I'm so, like I said, am excited for, like I said, the next part. Closing, like I said, as we're closing out, I did want to ask. So, is there anything that you want to discuss that we haven't had a chance yet to discuss in this discussion before we sort of regroup in a few months?
Mm, I'd like to, because I've shared a lot about vulnerable stuff about myself, and of course, only if you feel comfortable, but I'd kind of like to know what kind of like drives you, what was kind of like the thing that happened to you that motivates you to do better each day.
Oh, that's an amazing question. So, what motivates me to do better every day and what drives me? I would say that I've always been very self motivated, and I don't know, I've always just been able to do things. I'm very much a planner or plan procrastinator, if you will, but uh, I've always been able to drive myself. But I would say in high school, not to make this sound like an origin story, but in high school, there were a few different times where like my house more or less flooded of various things. Pipe messing up, the water pipe. We've had time with the washing machine overflowing during our one vacation. That was just a few days long, and some other interesting mishaps like that. But during that time, it was really hard to stay self motivated,
Mm-hmm.
and so being able to say, oh, yeah, well, I could just come home and just make this happen. But then realizing that there's like a lot of blowing machines in your house and tape covering up everything. Um, to me, like, as an introvert and as someone that likes being at home with the family, it made it hard to really enjoy it. And don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it. It's not any sort of major trauma experience by any means necessary, but it's definitely hard to sort of come home and feel comforted when your home is in pieces, um, because of outside circumstances, and that no matter what you sort of do, it's just sort of stuck like that. But I'd say the first time that happened, it was interesting, and it was like one of those sort of once in a lifetime experiences that was like, okay, you know what? Uh, it is what it is. We're going to make the most of it. But then less than 2 years later, when the exact same thing happened again, it definitely felt a bit defeating, especially as every construction worker that came by said, "This is a once in a lifetime experience, and you get all new floors." It's like we just got new floors; these are brand new, and they're now ruined. And it definitely I think was a bit defeating in a sense. Like for me, I was in a math class, and math is not my strong suits. I'm glad that you're able to be a, math teacher. But being able to try to go through that, needing the extra concentration, the extra help, but then not having the time for it because I have to be, of course, at home, trying to deal with the whole. Will the floor work today? Will another pipe burst uh, and do anything? Definitely was a bit. I said truly defeating, I think is the right word. But I was still nevertheless motivated, even if it took the extra time. But I think it's really like knowing who your friends are and knowing how they can help support you in any way, I think was just so helpful. But I thought it was a good time to also learn people's stories, and that in my thoughts, I didn't have anything more to lose per se.
Mm-hmm.
That one of my goals of high school was to actually finish high school early and start college early. And I thought this was the time of like 16. I was like, there's not even a point of applying. Like my grades have slipped a little bit, not drastically, but um, just a little bit. I didn't see a point of applying, but they're like, you know what? Just apply anyway. You never know. I applied and like I got in, like, and knowing that I think was sort of like a mindset shift because it's like, oh, even with everything, even like I can still keep going with my plan. Um, and so I think from that I kind of learned that you don't have to let your circumstances define you, but also you don't need to ignore the circumstances either. And so, in retrospect, I wish I would have like vlogged the experience. I think that would have been so fun to be able to look back at that now, and see, oh my gosh, I lived, like this. This was my day to day. But even though I haven't published a lot of it, I have actually vlogged most of my life now from January 2020 to present.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of these days, I'm hoping maybe it'll be this year to share some of it online in little snippets, just to just be able to look back at it years later and not doing it for the sake of content, but doing it for myself.
Yeah, I really relate to that because that's also just a reason why I write the poetry. Because sometimes it won't be just about like healing or I don't know, find out something new about myself. It'll just be about remembering the moment. And it's also just remind people that like not all poetry is meant to like heal you in a way. Because that I think a lot of people think of poetry that way. So I really relate to that. Just like remember those snippets of your life. I'm really glad you shared that story because I can relate to it as well. Because let's say we're not like the most wealthy people, but we're not like poor or anything. But I really relate to that. Like, oh yeah, don't care about your circumstances. Just make the most of it. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course, yeah, I'm so glad I was able to, I mean, to share that with you because I do believe that it's so important that we don't just keep some of our stories to ourselves. Now, sometimes I think we do have our own time in which we need to be able to share. Like, no one's asked me about that before. And so I like being able to sort of ask those questions on my platform that no one has asked. And so I definitely, so greatly appreciate that. And do you have a message for yourself in rewatching this, or even when we get into next discussion, that you want to tell your future self?
Prepare and don't be late for an interview with someone else.
I love that. Yeah, I know for myself, I always have a fun plethora of, what's that, technical difficulties, but, and I know you got, if I remember correctly, got caught in the rain right before our discussion as well.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, the message is for me, not for you. Don't worry. I should have prepared a bit more and thought maybe I shouldn't uh be walking home. Maybe I should take the bus this one time. But yeah. Thanks.
Oh, no worries, like I said, but I'm so glad that you were able to, I mean, to have that hopefully joyous, but maybe a little wet, walk home. And then last but not least, I did want to allow for you to go ahead and share where you can find your poetry. And I know you have a new poetry book coming out. And so are you able to give us a little short snippet of what we can expect to go ahead and close out this episode?
So if you're Polish or if you want to use Google Translate, you can search up my poetry book. If you type in the title Jasna i ciemna strona czerwonego księżyca, No, that'll probably be in the show notes, but also you can just search up any of my accounts, and I have the book link up there. So that's where you'll be able to find me. So if you type in my name, and I should probably spell that because my name is quite hard to realize how it's spelled. So my first name is Karol, not with a C because that's a Christmas carol, and then my surname is Kosz.
Well, thank you so much for that, Carol. And my last thing I'll say in ending this part of the discussion is, what would you label this part of the discussion if you were to give a short name to it?
Um, an unexpected, unexpectedly comfortable beginning to a new chapter.
I love that. Thank you so much, like I said, for speaking with me. I greatly appreciate it. And I'm so excited for us to dive into the second part of this.
Thanks very much, and I'll see you in a few months.
Yeah, sure will. Take care, friends. All right, Carol, what did you think of this episode?
It was a great episode. Like, I could not imagine that my first interview for a podcast would be this long, that I could talk this long, and I learned so many things about myself.
Yeah, I mean, even for myself, I love being able to to speak with you, get to know you and your story. And now you are at this point a few episodes into your own podcast. So just for a tease for the next time we have a chance to speak, have you been enjoying it thus far?
Oh yeah, like it's been absolutely great, and I thought it would take up a lot more time, but I think I'm recording it in a way that actually gives me time to work on my other projects, so it's all actually great.
I love that. I love tuning in to, I believe, the two that you've put out thus far as of recording.
Yeah. Oh, they've been really good, and I've actually gotten really good responses so far from other people that have listened to it, not just you, because you love to listen to it, and I'm really grateful that you enjoy it, and not just because we've had a discussion beforehand, but the fact that they're actually enjoyable, even though they're not the typical business student podcast that you think of, not the stereotype. I record them in a park. So far, the episodes have been in uh, two different parks, one near DCU and then one near in Phoenix Park, which is in the city centre, and it's actually the biggest park in Europe.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I'm excited to tune into future episodes. I hope those tuning in, check it out. So, okay, so Carol, to end out, like I said, this reflection, what do you have to say a few weeks later after recording?
It's never actually that hard once you start. Just get going, and then it all flows easily from there.
I love that. I look forward to speaking with you in our next discussion.
Thanks.
Of course.